Hey everybody, how are you doing? My name is Juan. I am just one reader and I am here with a pre-Booktubeathon reading update. I wanted to make this video before Booktubeathon starts tomorrow night. Booktubeathon officially starts at the strike of midnight on the 30th of July. So that would be tomorrow night. But I wanted to make this reading update before the crazed madness of Booktubeathon starts tomorrow and we all start reading like crazy. First I want to mention a book that I started reading this morning and I decided to quit reading and put it back on the shelf, and I will try it again later at some other point in time, and that is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I wanted to read this. I've been wanting to read this for a very long time, but I think it's the kind of book that I'm just waiting for the appropriate time for me to read something like this. I started it this morning and I was just not in the right frame of mind, honestly. I was very frustrated because on the one hand, I really wanted to love this and I wanted to be immersed in it, and it was like I was reading it, but on the back of my head, on the back of my mind, I was just saying to myself, why are you doing this right now, Juan? Don't kid yourself. Just be real, be honest, man up, and be courageous enough to say, this is not the right time to be reading this. Because, you know, this Mrs. Dalloway does have a very particular, a very distinct kind of writing style. It is a sort of very meandering, slow-burning stream of consciousness kind of novel, and it is beautifully written, and I was very frustrated by that experience precisely because it was like looking at something. It's like when you look at something, a TV show or a movie or a book or a painting or whatever, and or a good piece of music. It's like when you listen to a song and you can objectively observe that piece of art and say, this is good, but I am not here for this right now. This is not the right time. So I just put it back on the shelf, and I'm kind of sad by that experience, but at least now I know that whenever I do decide to pick it up, I will try to prepare myself and put myself in the right mindset for it. So in the comments down below, let me know if you have read Mrs. Dalloway. What do you think of Virginia Woolf? I have never read anything by her, so this would have been my first foray into Virginia Woolf. So then I decided to actually start two books at the same time. One of them is fiction and the other one is nonfiction. First, I will start with fiction. And this is kind of cheating because this is actually a book that I had planned for Booktubeathon. So I am officially confessing that I committed a crime. I am already reading one of the books for Booktubeathon from my TBR for Booktubeathon. And that is The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, the second part of The Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I'm sorry, I cheated, I don't care. I mean, there's no Booktubeathon police, right? No one is going to start throwing rocks in some kind of biblical punishment at me, I hope. So I just wanted to read this. I already had it there on my reading table, right at the top of my Booktubeathon TBR stack of books, and I just kept thinking, man, I want to read this. Man, I am pumped for this. So who gives a fuck, honestly? I'm just gonna go ahead and read it. So I did start reading this, and it's good. It's good. It's very good. It hasn't gotten to the good parts yet, but I just really wanted to read this, and I don't care. This is a big book, so you know, I wasn't even going to finish it during Booktubeathon anyway, so I don't feel that guilty, you know. And the other book that I started reading is not for Booktubeathon, and it's not a book that I am going to read very quickly because it is nonfiction and it's really shiny. Woo! So this is The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. So as an atheist myself, I am always trying to or not trying to, I am always feeling drawn towards this kind of philosophical, scientifical debates about human existence, and also being a psychoanalyst in training, it's kind of part of my job description, really, to question and to debate and to, they say that psychoanalysis is the science of suspicion. And so I think as an atheist and a psychoanalyst, reading this kind of nonfiction is just very attractive to me, and it's something that it's like a moth to a flame. I am just very, very drawn to this kind of thing. I just read, I think, the preface or the foreword or something, the preface, and it's lovely. It's wonderfully written. Richard Dawkins, I never read anything by him. I have read some things by Christopher Hitchens, but I had never read Richard Dawkins. And this is wonderful. He has a very, very elegant prose, a very, very elegant writing style. He feels very kind and very warm and very passionate and ridiculously clever. So I am really looking forward to this. It is very accessible. It's very easy to read, and so I am really excited to read this. And I also wanted to mention, since I'm on the topic of nonfiction, I think reading The Lord of the Rings while reading other works, works of nonfiction like The God Delusion, is really wonderful, because The Lord of the Rings feels almost like nonfiction. It is not your typical fantasy or your typical fiction work that just feels like fantasy or that just feels like fiction. No. What I love about The Lord of the Rings, what I am loving about reading The Lord of the Rings this time around, is that it is written, and I am reading it almost like a myth or a piece of nonfiction, or like a piece of history or historical fiction. Maybe it feels like it has a historical texture to it that is not present usually, or it's not present in many fantasy works or in works of fiction in general. This has that kind of real accuracy. It almost feels historical, and that's why I am loving The Lord of the Rings so much. So those are the books that I am reading right now, and tomorrow night, when the clock strikes midnight and it's officially time for Booktubeathon, I will start reading probably The Heart of a Dog by Mikhail Bulgakov, or any of the books from my TBR for Booktubeathon. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I am Just One Reader, and I will see you during Booktubeathon.